If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, you'll understand why I still remember the sting of that night. The kind of cold that seeps through your bones. The kind of silence that makes you question if you even exist to the people who are supposed to love you most. I was 14 and it was Christmas Eve. The snow was falling in thick. Silent sheets and the world outside our house looked like a postcard. Inside it was anything but peaceful. Dinner had started like every other holiday, my dad at the head of the table, my mom fussing over the turkey, my little brother poking at his peas. I tried to keep my head down, tried not to say anything that would set him off. But it never took much. One wrong word, one look he didn't like, and suddenly I was the problem. That night, it was about the cranberry sauce. He said I was being ungrateful. I said I just didn't like it. He slammed his fist on the table so hard the plates rattled. "You need to learn some respect," he snapped. "If you can't appreciate what you have, maybe you don't deserve it." I thought he'd just yell, "Maybe send me to my room." But instead, he stood up, grabbed my arm, and marched me to the front door. "Stay outside until you learn some respect," he said, his voice low and dangerous. Before I could say anything, he shoved me out onto the porch and slammed the door behind me. I heard the lock click. I stood there stunned as the cold bit through my sweater. I waited for someone, my mom maybe, to come and let me back in. But no one came. I pressed my face to the window, watching as they went back to dinner. My brother laughed at something on TV. My mom poured my dad another glass of wine. I watched them open presents. The tree glowing in the corner, the room warm and golden. I was so close I could see the steam rising from their mugs of cocoa. But I might as well have been 1,000 miles away. The minutes dragged by. My fingers went numb. I tried knocking softly at first, then harder. No one looked up. I called out, but the wind swallowed my voice. I thought about running to a neighbor's house. But I was barefoot and the snow was already up to my ankles. I tried to be brave, tried not to cry, but the tears came anyway, freezing on my cheeks. I don't know how long I stood there, shivering, watching my family pretend I didn't exist. Maybe an hour, maybe more. Time moves differently when you're cold and alone. I started to wonder if they'd ever let me back in, or if I'd just disappear, a ghost on the other side of the glass. Then, just as I was about to give up, I saw headlights cutting through the snow. A limo, pulled up to the curb, its black paint gleaming even in the storm. The back door opened and a figure stepped out. Tall and regal, wrapped in a fur coat. My heart skipped. Grandma. She didn't visit often. She lived in a penthouse downtown, traveled the world, and sent postcards from places I'd only seen in movies. My dad always said she was too busy for family, but I knew the truth. She and my dad had never gotten along. She was the only person he seemed to fear. She looked at me standing there in the snow, and her eyes narrowed. She didn't say a word at first. She just took in the scene, the locked door, the lights inside, the way I was hugging myself to stay warm. Then she turned to her driver and said something I couldn't hear. The driver nodded and walked up to the house, knocking hard. My dad opened the door, his face going pale when he saw who it was. "Mother," he said, trying to sound casual. "We weren't expecting you." Grandma didn't smile. She didn't even step inside. She just looked past him at me and then back at the house. "Why is my granddaughter outside?" she asked, her voice icy as the wind. My dad stammered, searching for an excuse. "She was being disrespectful. I thought a little time in the cold would teach her a lesson." Grandma's eyes flashed. "The only lesson being taught here is cruelty." She turned to me, her voice softening. "Come here, darling." I ran to her, burying my face in her coat. She wrapped her arms around me, warm and safe, and for the first time all night I felt like I mattered. She looked at the house, then at my dad. "You always were a disappointment," she said quietly. "But tonight you've outdone yourself." My dad's face turned red. "This is my house. My rules." Grandma smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. "Not anymore." She turned to her driver and said one word, clear and sharp: "Demolish." For a moment, no one moved. The snow kept falling, the world holding its breath. My dad stared at her, not understanding. My mom rushed to the door, her face white with fear. My brother peeked out from behind her, eyes wide. Grandma took my hand and led me to the limo. "You don't have to stay where you're not wanted," she whispered. "Not tonight. Not ever." As the limo pulled away, I looked back at the house, the only home I'd ever known, and wondered what would happen next. The warmth inside the limo was almost shocking. My skin prickled as the heat blasted through the vents, thawing my frozen fingers and toes. Grandma's driver handed me a thick wool blanket, and I wrapped it around myself, still shivering. Grandma sat beside me, her posture perfect, her eyes fixed on the house as it faded into the snowy darkness behind us. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the hum of the engine and the soft hiss of the heater. I glanced at her, unsure what to say. I'd always been a little afraid of Grandma, her sharp tongue, her expensive clothes, the way she seemed to see through everyone. But tonight she was different. She reached over and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, her touch gentle. "You're safe now," she said quietly. "No one will hurt you tonight." I nodded, swallowing hard. My teeth were still chattering, but it wasn't just from the cold. I felt a strange mix of relief and guilt. Relief that I was out of that house, away from my father's anger. Guilt that I'd left my mom and brother behind. That I hadn't tried harder to make things right. I wondered if they even noticed I was gone. Grandma must have sensed my thoughts. "You didn't do anything wrong," she said, her voice firm. "Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Respect is earned, not demanded." I looked down at my hands, twisting the blanket between my fingers. He said I was disrespectful. All I did was say I didn't like the cranberry sauce. She snorted, a sound so un-grandma-like that I almost smiled. "Your father has always confused obedience with respect. He never learned the difference." She paused, her gaze softening. "But you, my dear, you have a spine. Don't ever lose that." The limo glided through the city, the snow swirling in the headlights. We passed houses lit up for Christmas. Families gathered around trees, laughter spilling out into the night. I wondered if any of them knew how lucky they were. Eventually, we pulled up in front of a tall glass building downtown. The doorman rushed out, holding an umbrella over Grandma as we hurried inside. The lobby was warm and bright, decorated with garlands and twinkling lights. The elevator whisked us up to the penthouse, and when the doors opened, I stepped into a world I'd only seen in magazines. The apartment was huge, floor-to-ceiling windows, a grand piano in the corner, a fireplace crackling with real logs. A Christmas tree stood in the center of the room, its ornaments sparkling in the firelight. For a moment, I just stood there, taking it all in. Grandma led me to the kitchen, where a pot of hot chocolate was waiting on the stove. She poured me a mug, added extra marshmallows, and set a plate of cookies in front of me. "Eat," she said, her tone brooking no argument. "You need to get your strength back." I sipped the hot chocolate, feeling the warmth spread through my chest. For the first time all night, I started to relax. Grandma sat across from me, watching me with a thoughtful expression. "Do you know why I came tonight?" she asked suddenly. I shook my head. "Dad always said you didn't like Christmas." She smiled a little sadly. "I don't like what Christmas became in that house. But I love you, and I had a feeling you might need me." I blinked, surprised. "How did you know?" She shrugged. "Mothers know, even when their children are grown, even when they try to hide things. I saw the way your father looked at you last Thanksgiving. I saw the way you flinched when he raised his voice. I should have done something sooner. I didn't know what to say. I'd spent so long feeling alone, convinced that no one saw what was happening. To hear her say she noticed, it was almost too much." We sat in silence for a while, the fire crackling, the city lights twinkling below. Eventually, Grandma stood and disappeared into her bedroom. She returned with a small velvet box and set it in front of me. "Merry Christmas," she said softly. I opened the box and gasped. Inside was a delicate gold necklace, a tiny snowflake pendant sparkling in the light. "It was my mother's," Grandma said. "She gave it to me when I was your age. I want you to have it." Tears pricked my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered. She hugged me, holding me tight. "You're not alone, sweetheart." "Not anymore." That night, I slept in a bed softer than anything I'd ever known, wrapped in a cocoon of warmth and safety. But even as I drifted off, I couldn't stop thinking about the house I'd left behind, about my mom and brother, about the look on my dad's face when Grandma said that word, demolish. I wondered if she meant it, if she really had the power to tear down the only home I'd ever known, and if she did, what would happen to the family inside? As the city slept beneath a blanket of snow, I realized that everything had changed. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hope. I woke up to the sound of soft jazz, playing and the smell of cinnamon rolls, drifting through the penthouse. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then I remembered the night before, the snow, the locked door, Grandma's arms around me. I sat up, the gold necklace still warm against my skin, and looked out at the city below. The world was bright and new, the rooftops dusted with fresh snow, the sky a pale winter blue. Grandma was already in the kitchen, humming to herself as she set out breakfast. She smiled when she saw me. "Good morning, darling. Did you sleep well?" I nodded, still a little dazed. "Better than I have in years." She poured me a cup of tea and sat across from me. "I made a few calls last night," she said, her tone casual but her eyes sharp. "Your father will be getting a visit from my lawyer this afternoon." My heart skipped. "Are you really going to demolish the house?" She sipped her tea, considering. "I bought that house for your parents when they married. It's still in my name. I let them live there because I thought it would give you and your brother a good life. But a house is just bricks and wood. If it becomes a place of pain, it's better to start over." I thought about the years I'd spent trying to be good enough, trying to keep the peace. I thought about my brother, still inside those walls, and my mother, always looking the other way. What will happen to them? Grandma reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "That's up to them. I'm not throwing anyone out in the snow. But I won't let your father hurt you again. Or anyone else." We spent the morning together, baking cookies and watching old movies. For the first time, I saw a different side of Grandma. Funny. Warm, a little mischievous. She told me stories about her own childhood, about the risks she'd taken, the mistakes she'd made, the people she'd loved and lost. I realized how little I really knew her, how much I'd missed by believing my father's stories. Around noon, the phone rang. Grandma answered, her voice calm and steady. I watched her face as she listened, her expression unreadable. When she hung up, she turned to me. "That was your mother. She's coming over with your brother. She wants to talk." My stomach twisted with nerves. I didn't know what to expect. Part of me wanted to see them, to believe things could change. Part of me was still angry, still hurt. When the doorbell rang, Grandma opened it herself. My mother stood in the hallway, her eyes red from crying. My little brother clutching her hand. He ran to me, burying his face in my shoulder. "I missed you," he whispered. I hugged him tight, tears stinging my eyes. My mother stepped inside, her hands shaking. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice breaking. "I should have stopped him. I should have protected you." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to let go of the pain. But forgiveness isn't easy. It takes time. Grandma put an arm around both of us. "You're safe here," she said. "All of you." We sat together in the living room, the fire crackling, the city spread out below. My mother told me she was leaving my father. She said she couldn't watch him hurt us anymore. She said she wanted to start over, to build something better. I looked at Grandma, at my brother, at my mother's tear-streaked face, and I realized that family isn't about blood or houses or Christmas presents. It's about the people who show up when you need them most. The people who fight for you, who believe in you, who love you even when you're at your lowest. That night, as the snow fell softly outside, Grandma tucked me in and kissed my forehead. "You're stronger than you know," she whispered. "Never forget that." I lay awake for a long time, listening to the quiet, feeling the warmth of the necklace against my skin. I thought about the word Grandma had said, demolish. I realized she hadn't just meant the house. She meant the cycle of pain, the silence, the fear. She meant tearing down everything that kept us apart, so we could build something new. And as I drifted off to sleep, I knew that whatever happened next, I wouldn't face it alone.